Hey guys, this is Doug with fellowshipofthemartyrs.com. I'm doing another in the series of extreme offensive spiritual warfare videos. Um, it's not all what you think. It's not all swinging swords and flamethrowers and claiming the ground and anointing the land and whatever. It's like
Yeah.
there are that's my roommate waking up while I'm making a video. Never mind him snoring. um, I have a dial, and best way that I can explain it, the light of Christ that is in you, you can hide it under a bushel, hide it under a bed, put a shade over it, or you can put it on a lampstand where all the world can see. You can be a city set on a hill, or you can hide the light. Now, when God's light is in you, however much there is, one little candle or the halogen array on top of a football stadium, whatever it is, however much light you have, when you cloak it, when you ask the Lord to hide you from the eyes of the enemy, He puts a bushel over it, He hides it, and they don't see you coming. Or you can ask the Lord to dial it up real bright, let everybody see it, take the shade off of that bare bulb, just lights up the whole room instead of just right over your chair where you're reading. Well, sometimes I've got my dial set at kind of neutral, kind of like an idle speed, like in your car, when it's not revving too fast. It's keeping running. It's just kind of nice, smooth. Okay. Sometimes in my videos you'll see me dial up, and it's just the light is shining bright, and I'm in warfare mode. Let me be God's pit bull. Show me to the bad guys. Swords swinging and weapons and shields and the whole deal, and let's go get them. And you take that dial and you dial it up real high, and it's just the righteous indignation and the wrath of God. And that's cool, and you just, like the Jolly Green Giant, just stomp through town, crushing things, killing bad guys, swinging at it, whatever. Figuratively, spiritually, however you want to consider that, what I'm telling you. But it's that moment that in prayer, when you're in the Spirit, and when He's just like, show me to the bad guys, let's go get them. I just want to rip out their throat and spit down their neck. And that the darkness flees when the light dials up real bright. And that's mighty, and it's powerful. And I want people to get more authority so that their dial will turn up higher, so that they can tower over anything that comes against them or their land, their family, their town, their church, whatever, assembly. So, but on the one end, you've got dialed up great big giant mighty warrior. On the other end, you've got Helpless Worm. And I got my idle speed. If I dial it down so that the pilot light is just barely on, there's just a tiny little flicker of a flame left, just short of blowing it out. And by the way, don't blow your light out. Very bad things happen if your light gets blown out. First of all, love is gone, disappears. There's nothing left but self-interest and self-protection and fear. Anyway, In Psalm 21, or Psalm 22, look it up. It's a messianic psalm. It starts with, "O God, my God, why are you so far from me? Why are you so far from the words of my groaning? I'm a worm and not a man." It's all about, it's a messianic, prophetic psalm about Jesus on the cross. They cast lots for my clothes, my bones are out of joint, my heart is like wax within me, strong bulls of Bashan encircle me, all of that. It's very clearly hands and feet pierced. Nobody did that. The Romans invented that, basically. There's no way David anticipated that he would die that way. It was Jesus speaking through David, through the psalmist, to prophesy those things about what it was going to be like when he came and how he would die. But he says, "I'm a worm and not a man." And you need to understand that despite all the talk about weapons and nuking city under the sea and headquarters and stomping through town, crushing bad guys and pulling down high places and whatever, the most powerful warfare comes when you are most like Jesus on the cross. Part of the authority or motivation or whatever for me to make these videos right now is because right now I am closer to Jesus on the cross, beaten, bloody, ridiculed, lied about, mocked, scorned, hated, spit on, than I have been in a while. And that motivates you to love, to forgive. Jesus, it says that he was unrecognizable as a man. Not just that his physical body, his face was shredded. He was naked. There's no loincloth. The Romans humiliated people. There's a pretty good chance that his parts were severely damaged, if not missing altogether. There's a pretty good chance that when they're whipping that cat of nine tails and shredding chunks of skin off, there's a pretty good chance the Romans, who are really good at this, are aiming for the man parts. If you watch The Passion of the Christ and you see the pieces of metal dig in and rip whole chunks of skin off, as it wraps around him and they rip it off, he was not wearing a loincloth. He was unrecognizable as a man physically, but spiritually he was unrecognizable as a man. He did something so inhuman. He was on the cross, being tortured, dying, taking on the sins of the world, demons screaming on every side. And in the midst of it, he says, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." He didn't just forgive them. He asked that the Father would forgive them. He interceded for them. Now, we're commanded to forgive our enemies. He didn't just forgive them. He went to the Father and asked that the Father would forgive them. That's unrecognizable as a man. Now, we're supposed to be like him. Not just to forgive, but to intercede to the Father that he would forgive. Anyway, you have to understand that it pleased the Father to see his Son bruised. This is the big recital. This is the big pinnacle, the big peak, the big solo high note of the whole career, where his beautiful, amazing, sinless Son, who came to the world, left heaven, took on the sins of the world, is about to defeat death and sin and the grave and everything after this. It's smooth sailing to the finish line, because it's done. It's finished. Doesn't mean the war's over. Doesn't mean Satan's dead or in the abyss already, but that we have the victory when we avail ourselves of the power of the cross, because the cross is far more powerful than weapons and armor and whatever. All of the if you go before God, if you go before the throne of God, dialed up real high, show me to the bad guy, look at how shiny I am, look at my big weapons and my big armor and whatever, he's just going to say, son, I gave you that stuff, and it's nothing compared to what I got. It's just not a good way, even if he's your dad. Sir Lancelot does not go in full battle gear, acting all tough and you know, posturing in front of King Arthur. You go in humble. He's a king. He's a mighty king. You take your helmet off. You hit one knee. Don't you dare touch your sword. You know, and better to go humble. And if you want a favor of the king, you don't go in there in battle gear. You go in there humble and you hang your head and say, please sir, could you help with this? And there are times when I'm so beaten and so tired and so broken that I can't even reach out and grab my dial and attempt to dial it up. I don't even have the strength to try to drink in from him whatever authority and power I need to go get the bad guys. All I can do is lay there and say, please, Daddy, please fix it. Please take care of it. I'm so tired, I can't. I can't even lift my hand. I'm defenseless. My shields are down. My cloaks are down. Everything is biting on me like fire ants. They're chewing on me on every side. I can't even move. Please, Daddy, please do something, Daddy. And then from the throne of God, the finger of God goes wham on whatever the problem is, and just blasts it. I mean, I just watch it just explode out of control, out of just, and you look and say, well, I've fired a nuke at stuff and seen a mushroom cloud, but nothing like this. There's nothing like that. When, if you have a son or a daughter, you understand that there's a sound that they make when they're playing down the hallway in their room that you know they're just faking. They're playing with their brother or sister, and he hit her with a toy and she's whatever. And then there's a sound that they make that you know you need to get up right now and go check on them. Usually it's how long they hold their breath before the scream comes out. And then there's a sound that they make that you know you need to call 911 before you even go down the hall and check. That sound, no kid should make that sound and be okay. That is not a sound that, you know, whatever it is, you know this is real serious. This isn't a bump on the noggin that's going to require a kiss and sitting on my lap for a while. This is blood curdling bad. And when one of his children is just exhausted, laying at his feet, and there's not even words, and the Spirit just groans through you and sighs, and you just weep and you can't stop, that is like a 911 call to the throne of God. And then it's not your piddly little weapons and armor and shields and flamethrowers and whatever that is brought to bear on the problem. The Father from the throne whacks it. And there is nothing more powerful than that. And there are times, as a father, I just imagine a dad and a little 4-year-old going out fishing, and the son's got his little, 3-foot long Snoopy reel that, he casts his little reel, and dad's got his big one, and he catches a little crappie, and he thinks he's real proud of himself, and dad congratulates him, and dad doesn't do the fishing all the time. Dad wants him to learn. Dad gives him a little reel he can handle, and a hook that's not so sharp it'll hurt him, and watches over it and makes sure he's okay, and congratulates him when he catches the little fishy. And then the kid marvels when Dad lands, a 20-pound bass. It's kind of like that. You got to understand that no matter how tough you think you are, no matter how big you think your weapons are, Satan is much more scared of Helpless Worm Mode. You can dial all the way up to Mighty Warrior, Optimus Prime, Transformer, weaponized, whatever, marching through town, crushing stuff, or you can dial down to Helpless Worm and watch the hand of God just move in a mighty way. And sometimes he has you kind of flipping back and forth and doing a little yourself, and then he'll do some, and then you'll do some, and he'll do some, but because it's training, it's experience points, whatever you want to think of it. But I want you to understand that for all of the videos that I'm making about spiritual warfare, unconditional love is the most powerful thing. That is the tree of life. That is the seed from the tree of life. There's not a war between good and evil. There's a war between good and evil and perfect. And the tree of the knowledge of good and evil has us constantly arguing who's good and who's evil. But then there's perfect. And the fruit of perfect is love. A seed, a sliver of the morning star, a drop of pure light, a drop of pure love, whatever, is what we need to power us inside, like a little nuclear reactor, a little singularity quasar, or whatever you want to call it. And that reactor, when you dial it up real high and the love of God is shining out of you, you're not praying to curse your enemies. You're not praying. You're praying to do them to bless and not to curse. Now, demons are another matter. But if I pray that the Lord would touch somebody's heart and do whatever He has to do to them to humble them so that they will be a broken and contrite vessel useful for God's purposes, that's a blessing. It may hurt real bad to get there, but the end result is the point, and that's a blessing. Just like if somebody's an alcoholic and they won't admit it until they're eating out of a dumpster, sleeping in the gutter, well, let's just drive them down there now and get it over with. The sooner the better, and then we can get on with them being useful. That's a blessing, not a curse. I want you to understand that there's a duality here. Just like in the Bible, we see these mighty men of old, David and Gideon and Samson and Jephthah, and all these people talked about in Hebrews, the great cloud of witnesses, the pantheon of heroes, mighty kings, that Solomon, that had the wisest man in the world, that had people coming from all over the world to bring him tribute and just have a chance to hear his wisdom. And then you have the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, born in a manger, in a stable, hunted, ridiculed, born out of wedlock. That's sort of the duality, and yet the power was not in Solomon's temple. The power was not in Herod's temple. The palace was the power was not in David's palace. The power was not in Moses' tabernacle. The power was in the manger and at the cross. It's the humblest things, the poorest, the neediest, that will inherit the kingdom of God. So I want to encourage you, if you want to kick Satan around and kick in his teeth and make a difference, don't feel like you have to dial up into big old giant David and Goliath. There's a time for that. There is. And He'll put it in you. And it's His faith. You can't muster that up. He'll put it in you. and you go get the bad guys. But more powerful yet is the other end of the spectrum, where you are just whooped and you stop trying to even defend yourself, to do anything, and you just say, please, Abba, please, Daddy, I give up. If I'm to survive this, it's up to you. And then you watch him move. And man, will he move. You're always safe to push all your chips out onto the table and bet it all on God. And then let it ride. Thanks for listening. Ask him to show you the deep things and understand his economy, the things that he values. And you'll be able to grasp the truth in what I'm saying. Don't forget to subscribe, forward these videos on to your friends, send me a friend request. There's no reason Mikey Bit My Finger can get 232 million views and we get 100 on a video about love, about power, about Jesus, about how to kick Satan in the ding-ding. Anyway, thanks for listening. Lots more. fellowshipofthemartyrs.com.